Tonight we look at the first sign, Al-Masih al-Dajjal. Let us begin with definition. Dajjal is a being, a wujud. Dajjal was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created him in his wisdom. And when Allah created Dajjal, Allah endowed Dajjal with awesome power, with awesome versatility. And Dajjal was created at that time when Adam alayhi salam was created. Because the Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he said, every prophet has warned his people about Dajjal. Every prophet. So Dajjal has been created a long time ago. In the last age, Dajjal will be released. And when he is released on earth, Dajjal will have a general mission and he will have a specific mission. His general mission is to test all of mankind, to test you, to see whether you have any faith at all. All those who fail his test are heading for the fire. His test will be an awesomely difficult test. So great will be the tests and trials to which mankind will be subjected by Dajjal, that the Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he said the greatest fitna means a test and a trial. He said the greatest fitna that mankind will experience from the time of Adam alayhi salam to the last day is the fitna of Dajjal. So don't play around with this subject. Be very serious with this subject. Dajjal will not only test all of mankind, and tonight we will look at some of the tests, but Dajjal has a specific mission. His mission is to impersonate Al-Masih and to get Banu Israel to believe that he is Al-Masih. And so in order to understand Dajjal in his capacity as Al-Masih al-Dajjal, we need first to understand who or what is Al-Masih. After Banu Israel had lived in the Holy Land, which Allah had given to them, and after Dawood alayhi salam had established the state of Israel, he was a Muslim, so this is the Islamic state of Israel. And after Sulaiman alayhi salam had raised it until it became the most magnificent state that history will ever witness. After Sulaiman alayhi salam had built the masjid, and therefore after Banu Israel had experienced, take note of this, after Banu Israel had experienced the golden age, then they committed misdeeds, they violated the trust with Allah, the covenant with Allah, they committed many, many sins, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expelled them from the Holy Land. Surah to Bani Israel of the Quran, Surah number 17, describes this. وَقَضَيْنَا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ فِي الْكِتَابِ لَتُفْسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ يعني الأرض المقدسة لَتُفْسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَّتَيْنِ وَلَتَعْلُنَّ عُلُوًّا كَبِيرًا. Twice did Banu Israel commit fasad in the Holy Land. Fasad is not just corruption. Fasad is a corruption which is destructive in nature. What did they do? We don't have the time tonight. But if I get a chance to deliver the lecture Jerusalem in the Quran, then we can go into all those details. But they were expelled. They had violated the conditions for residence in the Holy Land. And Allah sent a Babylonian army. And that Babylonian army destroyed the state of Israel, destroyed the masjid, and took Banu Israel into slavery in Babylon. Babylon is in today's modern day Iraq, in that territory. All right. And so the golden age has come to an end. While Banu Israel were there in Babylon, weeping by the rivers of Babylon, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets to them. Among the prophets was a prophet named Daniel, for example. And he's a very important figure, Daniel. When these prophets came to Banu Israel in Babylon, these prophets communicated to Banu Israel a promise from Allah to them. The promise was that He was going to send to them a prophet who would be a special prophet, because this prophet would bring back the golden age. The golden age was one in which Sulaiman alayhi salam and the state of Israel ruled the world. It was the ruling state of the world. And when this prophet comes, he will bring that back. He will rule the world from Jerusalem. This prophet, special prophet to Banu Israel, this prophet was known as Al-Masih. The meaning of the word is not relevant here. The significance of the word is what is relevant. The functions of Al-Masih is to bring back the golden age, to rule the world from Jerusalem. In order for the Messiah to bring back the golden age, the implication is, number one, this is clear as an implication, number one, he would first have to liberate the Holy Land from Gentile rule, non-Jewish rule. Number two, he will have to bring Banu Israel back to the Holy Land. Number three, he will have to restore the state of Israel. And number four, that Israel must grow until it becomes the ruling state in the world, and that Messiah must rule the world from Jerusalem. Only then will the golden age of Sulaiman alayhi salam return. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfilled His promise and sent the Messiah, Al-Masih, in the person of Isa alayhi salam, they rejected him. Is it tomorrow night? No, Thursday night we have Islamic view of the return of Isa alayhi salam. Thursday night. So on Thursday night we're going to go into this in greater detail. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfilled His promise and sent the Messiah to them, they rejected Him. Not all. No. There were some Jews who accepted Him. فَآمَنَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. But there are others who rejected Him. وَكَفَرَ طَائِفَةٌ. They rejected Him because they declared that وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ هَذَا, He's a bastard. His mother gave birth to Him without a father, without any, husband. And therefore she had committed that vile deed of zina. He's a bastard. A bastard cannot be the Messiah. So they rejected Him. And then later on, when they saw Him die on the cross, before their very eyes, they saw Him die. He's dead. But the state of Israel has not risen to become the ruling state in the world, and He has not ruled the world from Jerusalem. A number of reasons. So He could not have been the Messiah. Tomorrow night or Thursday night I'll give you some more reasons. And so they're waiting for the Messiah to come. What they did not know, and you and I know, is that this was indeed Al-Masih. And when they thought that He was dead, that they had crucified Him, no, He was not crucified. Allah made it appear unto them that He was crucified, and Allah raised Him unto Himself. So He did not experience something called maut. And since every soul must taste maut, who said so? Every soul must taste maut. Who said so? Yes, the Quran. Allah says so. Kullu nafsin zaikatul maut. Every soul must taste maut. Therefore, he also must taste maut. Therefore, he will return. He will die. Since they're still waiting for Al-Masih to come, you can't live in New York and not know that. They're still waiting for Al-Masih to come. And they had boasted of how they killed this one. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ informed us that Allah will send in the last age this being created by Allah, who will impersonate Al-Masih and who will convince them that he is delivering the return of the golden age. He will deceive them, however, because he would not be the true Messiah. He will deceive them because this would not be the return of the golden age. It would appear like that. And so Dajjal has been endowed with awesome powers of deception. He has a PhD in deception. Dajjal. This is indeed the meaning of the word itself, Dajjal. If Dajjal is to deceive Banu Israel and get them to be convinced that he is the Messiah, look at what he will have to do. Number one, he will have to liberate the Holy Land of non-Jewish rule. Number two, he'll have to bring Banu Israel back to the Holy Land. No matter how long they had lived outside of the Holy Land, he'll have to bring them back. Number three, he will have to restore the state of Israel. And number four, he will have to take the state of Israel to that status where it will become the ruling state in the world. And he himself will then have to rule the world from Jerusalem. That's not an easy task at all for the Dajjal to perform. When you give, make sure you put your hands deep in the pockets and give something, inshallah, for the masjid. Now let's come to the first hadith. The very few I'm going to quote, but they're very important. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, the hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and it is perhaps the most important of the hadith I'm going to quote tonight, this one. He said, when Dajjal is released, he will live on earth for 40 days. One day like a year. One day like a month. One day like a week. And the rest of his days like your days. When his day is like our day, he will be in our dimension of time. But prior to that, he would not be in our dimension of time because his day would not be like our day. When he is in our dimension of time, at that time it will be possible for us to see him. At that time, he will appear as a human being. A human being, not a system, not a civilization, a human being. And he would be a Jew. And he would be a young man powerfully built, with curly hair. At that time, when he appears in the world, in our dimension of time, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, he will come from the east. He pointed his finger 20 times to the east. The Dajjal will come from the east. But what about prior to that, when he will not be in our dimension of time? Where will he be, for example, when his day is like a year? Where will he be? Do we have any answer to that? He's going to be on earth, but we won't be able to see him. The angels, are they here in this room? Yes. How many? Each one of you have 2 angels on your forehead, on your shoulders. So there are many angels right here in this room. They are on earth. Are they in our dimension of time? No. No. So they don't perform salat. according to our timetable. Huh? Fajr for them is not Fajr for us. If we were to go into that day in which they live, and we have to perform salat, can we perform salat according to this timetable? No, we're going to have to calculate to do it. Can an angel come into our world? Can an angel come into our dimension of time so we can see the angel? Huh? Huh? Yes. Which one? Yes, Jibreel alayhi salam came as a human being, right in the masjid. Are there jinn in this masjid now? Oh yes, they are. They are not. Can we see them? Are they in our dimension of time? No, they're not. But can they enter into our dimension of time? Yes. Mr. Shaitan himself, Iblis, he came as a human being, as an old man, remember, with a walking stick. So Dajjal will enter into our dimension of time one day. We see him. But prior to that, in a day which is like a year, where will he be? It is from that location that he will commence his attack. He will begin his effort. Number one, to liberate the Holy Land. Number two, to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land. Number three, to restore the state of Israel. Number four, you know what's number four. From that location, he will begin the effort. Where will it be? Fortunately for us, we have the answer. And it is also in Sahih Muslim. It is known as the hadith of Tamim ad-Dari. Listen to it carefully now. Tamim ad-Dari was a Christian who took the Shahada, became a Muslim in Medina. He came to the Prophet ﷺ and narrated an experience which he had. The Prophet ﷺ, after the salat in the masjid, asked the people, sit down, sit down. I have something to tell you. Tamim ad-Dari has come to me and told me something about Dajjal, which confirms what I have been saying to you. So we know that what is contained in this story is true. What did Tamim ad-Dari experience? He said that he and some 40 of his companions went on board a ship. So you need water, eh? So they have to go in some place where you can travel with a ship, a sea or an ocean. And when they went on board the ship, a storm came. And the storm blew the ship for 40 days for a whole month, sorry, not 40 days. The storm blew the ship for a whole month before they reached land. Now, if you are on the western side of Arabia, which is Hijaz, and you get on board a ship, there are only two seas on which you can travel. One is the Mediterranean Sea, and the other is the Red Sea. Only these two. But it seems very much unlikely, in fact impossible, for a ship to be on the Red Sea and for a storm to be blowing and that ship did not touch land for a whole month, because the Red Sea is very narrow. And so I have chosen so hairy, so much hair, that you could hardly distinguish the head from the tail. So this beast is concealing its identity. And the beast spoke and said that I am what? Huh? I am? Are you guessing now? I am Jassas. Jassas means a spy. A spy. So this is number one, an island about 1 month's journey from the western side of Arabia. Number two, this is an island which conceals its true identity. Number three, this is an island of those who have PhDs in spying, in espionage, in intelligence work. Jassas then said to them, there is someone waiting to see you over there at the monastery, Christian monastery. So this is a Christian island. When they went to the monastery, they found this young man, powerfully built, curly hair, but he was in chains. His hand chained to his neck, his legs chained. And this man started to question them, a number of questions. The Nabi al-Ummi, has he arrived in Medina? Nabi al-Ummi means, it doesn't mean the Nabi who cannot read and write. No. It means the Nabi who is not a Jew. The Nabi who is Gentile. Has he arrived in Medina? Yes, he has. Are the people accepting him? Some are accepting, some are not. This man then says, it will be to their benefit if they will follow him. A very important statement. Then he asked, the date plantations of a particular area, is the crop still coming out in abundance? They said yes. He said, I don't think it'll last for long. And then he asked, Buhayratu Tabariya, that's the Arabic name. The English name is the Sea of Galilee. The Jews call it Lake Kinneret. It is the largest sea in the Holy Land. It is from the Sea of Galilee that whole of the Holy Land gets water. The Sea of Galilee. He said, is there any water in the Sea of Galilee? They said, yes, plenty water. He said, I don't think it's going to last for long. And then he said, I am Dajjal. I am Dajjal. And when I am released, I'm going to enter every single town and city. But notice, he didn't say kampung. He said, when I am released, I'm going to enter every town and city, except Mecca and Medina, because the angels will bar me. Which means at the time when Dajjal's day will be like our day, and he appears in the world as a human being, at that time he cannot enter Mecca and Medina, the angels will guard him. Now then, we now know from this hadith that when Dajjal is released and commences his mission, he will commence his mission from this island. Which island is it? In 1917, the British Secretary of State was a man named Lord Balfour. And Lord Balfour made a declaration, a stunning declaration. Britain was the superpower in the world, and Lord Balfour declared that the British government intends to pursue an effort for the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine. In 1919, a British general led an army which defeated the Turkish army, and from a Jewish perspective liberated Jerusalem and liberated the Holy Land. And then Britain became the power which controlled the Holy Land. The League of, in those days you didn't have the United Nations, you had the League of Nations. And the League of Nations conferred upon Britain something called mandate power. So Britain was the mandate power who controlled the Holy Land. Britain controlled the Holy Land from 1919 until 1948. In 1948, Britain acted as the midwife for the baby to be born. The baby, of course, was the state of Israel. In consequence of all of this, I have come to the conclusion that the island was Britain. And so when the Dajjal was released and commenced his mission to deceive Banu Israel and to deliver to them what would appear to be the return of the Golden Age, it is from Britain that he commenced his mission. But if there's anyone who differs with me, then I'll have to invite them to tell me, you tell me which island it is. You cannot just differ with me without telling me which island is it. Because the hadith is there in Sahih Muslim. You've got to deal with the hadith. During the time that Dajjal was launching his attack from Britain, the Holy Land was liberated of non-Jewish rule. During the time that Britain was hosting Dajjal, the Jews came back to the Holy Land. And during the time that Dajjal was launching his attack from Britain, the state of Israel was restored. 3 out of 4 already delivered. And in all of this, the overwhelming majority of Jews have been absolutely convinced that all of this represents blessings from Allah. That Allah is validating the Jewish claim to truth. That Allah is fulfilling His promise to Banu Israel. Now comes a little more difficult part. It was fairly simple to identify the island of Britain. If when Dajjal was in a day which lasts like a year, he will be in an island, according to the hadith of Tamim ad-Dari, where will he be in a day which is like a month? Is he going to move to another territory? And if he moves to another territory, how can we recognize it? The yardstick which I use to measure whether or not Dajjal has moved to another territory in a day which is like a month is the yardstick of the state of Israel. Who is the one Who is keeping it alive? Who is the one who is conferring upon it security? Who is the one who is building it up constantly, feeding it, and making it stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger? Is it Britain? The answer is no. Remember, your brother Imran is also a student of international relations. Don't forget that. The answer is no. Someone else has taken over from Britain as the strategic ally of the state of Israel. Britain is still there, but now there's someone else more important than Britain, with a more strategic relationship. The United States of America is without any question whatsoever the most important strategic ally of the state of Israel in the world today. Without any question whatsoever. The United States of America is the country which is supporting Israel with the greatest amount of financial assistance and material assistance. The United States of America is the country which has a strategic military alliance with the state of Israel. And so, I have come to the conclusion that the Dajjal, in a day which is like a month, is no longer in Britain. Britain now has to give way to another country. Britain was the superpower. Britain was ruling the world. But now another country mysteriously, strangely, inexplicably takes over from Britain as the ruling power in the world and the strategic ally of the state of Israel. This is the United States of America. When did it happen? Now we're going to test your knowledge of international affairs. When did it happen? I think you would agree with me, number one, that the Second World War would be the turning point. And so here is tangible evidence that the United States has now taken over from Britain as a senior partner. Evidence number two. At the end of the Second World War, in 1945, the international community came together in a conference in Bretton Woods in upstate New York to create a new international monetary system. Prior to this, Britain, London, was the financial capital of the world. Ever since the Bank of England was established maybe 200 years earlier, London was the financial capital of the world. And the ruling currency in the world was the British sterling pound. His Majesty the sterling pound. But now at Bretton Woods something strange happens. The Bretton Woods Agreement confers upon the US dollar the status of the ruling currency. And the Bretton Woods Agreement confers upon Washington the status of the financial capital of the world. because the International Monetary Fund is now located in Washington. The British didn't like that at all. The World Bank is located in Washington. The British didn't like that at all. So here is the second tangible evidence that Britain has now conceded and the United States has now taken over as the ruling power in the world. And then came a third and even more dramatic evidence. In 1952, a revolution took place in Egypt, and the Egyptian king Farouk was overthrown by the military. The military put General Muhammad Najib as the president. But he was like a figurehead really, because there were a group of officers who really controlled the thing. Muhammad Najib remained as the president from 1952 until 1956. But in 1955, there was a very important conference of Asian and African states which took place in a city in Indonesia. Which one? Bandung. I was in Bandung 2 weeks ago. Bandung, water in Bandung very cold. When you take your bath in the morning, very cold water. At the Bandung conference, it is not Muhammad Najib who goes to represent Egypt, but rather a man named Gamal Abdel Nasser. That's a sign of who is in charge. The next year, 1956, Gamal Abdel Nasser replaces Muhammad Najib as the president of Egypt. Shortly after that, same 1956, he nationalized the Suez Canal. Who built the Suez Canal? The French. Ferdinand de Lesseps was the French engineer. And then the French and the British came together in a joint control of the Suez Canal. Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalizes the Suez Canal, removes the French and British troops which were there, and Egyptian troops now take control of the Suez Canal. This is as plain and as clear an act of defiance and of confrontation with Britain as you could possibly find. In order for Britain to have any vestige of a claim to be a superpower, Britain has to respond, must respond. Well, what Britain did was, strangely, mysteriously, Britain kept the United States out. And the British and the French joined with Israel. And these three countries invaded Egypt. They landed in Suez and they took control of Suez. And the Israeli army swept through the Sinai Peninsula and took control of the whole of Sinai. And the Israeli army reached to the Suez Canal. General Dwight Eisenhower said, "No, I will not allow this. Go back." Can you tell Britain that? Withdraw your troops, go back. Will Britain obey? Sir Anthony Eden was the British Prime Minister. Guess what Britain had to do? Huh? Britain had to withdraw its troops. And France had to withdraw its troops. And the state of Israel had to withdraw its troops back to Israel. Because the American president said, no, I will not permit it. Go back. So here you have the third, the most dramatic of all evidence, that the United States of America has now taken over from Britain as the ruling power in the world. And that the United States of America still has this strategic relationship with the State of Israel. I have taken pains to mention dates because I want you to calculate. That was a day like a year, and this is a day like a month. What comes after this? Now is the time you have to think. And if out there in Indonesia they could understand it so easily and so quickly, grasp it so quickly, there is no reason why you cannot. In order for Dajjal to complete his mission, he has to move from a day which is like a month to a day which is like a week. If when he was in a day like a year, he was in one territory, and that was the ruling territory, the ruling power, and then in a day which is like a month, he moved to another territory, and that country became the ruling power, it follows therefrom that when he moves to a day which is like a week, he will move to a third place, a third country. And that country will now replace the United States of America as the ruling power in the world. But it will not rule for long. Just a short time. Which will be that territory? China? Ready? You think so? Anybody else? Israel, of course. Of course, Israel. The state of Israel already has, or has been given, by the United States, thanks to people like Jonathan Pollard, the nuclear know-how. The state of Israel has enough nuclear weapons, enough thermonuclear weapons to lay claim to be a superpower already. But in order to be recognized as a ruling power in the world, Israel will have to give a spectacular display. A spectacular display, a dazzling display of its military might, which it has never done so far. All that the world has seen is glimpses of what Israel is capable of doing. But it will have to be a spectacular display of its military power. When it does so, it will have to emerge out of that military event. It will have to emerge as the dominant power in that region, so that all the states in the region in which Israel is located must all submit to Israel. Secondly, when Britain was the ruling power, London was the financial capital of the world. When the United States became the ruling power, Washington was the financial capital of the world, ably assisted by New York. And so if Israel is to become the ruling power in the world, something dramatic has to happen in the monetary system around the world, in the financial system around the world. Something dramatic has to happen, in consequence of which the financial capital of the world will now shift to Jerusalem or to the Jews. What is it that can happen? Oh, I love the Indonesians, because they could understand so quickly, so easily. I don't know, maybe because they eat a lot of nasi, rice. The answer is, the international monetary system is based on fraud, paper money. If I get a chance, I can teach you the subject, but tonight is not the night. But it is fraudulent. The entire world of money is connected to one currency, the US dollar. The Indonesian rupiah can fall, and it will cause ripple effect on neighboring countries and so on, but it wouldn't bring down the world. The Turkish lira could be ready for Salatul Janaza, which is almost what is happening now. Turkish lira. But it would not bring down the world of paper money. But if the US dollar collapses, details, I don't have the time tonight. Something is going to happen which will bring the US dollar crashing down. You don't believe me? If you don't believe me, when it happens, then you will have to believe me. Yes, you will have to believe me on that day. But then you would look like a donkey. Yes, all those who have stayed confident that there is integrity in this monetary system, and this money is strong, it will never fall, and Imran is just talking nonsense. On that day, they will look like donkeys when the whole system crashes. Our Prophet has prophesied it. It's there in the hadith. He said the day will come when nothing will be of value, meaning as money, except a dinar and a dirham. And a dinar is not made of paper. A dinar made of gold. The dirham is made of silver. The sunnah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is dinar and dirham. The sunnah of all the prophets of Allah, the sunnah is dinar and dirham, gold and silver coins. We have abandoned the sunnah. We have abandoned Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and we're paying the price for it. The international financial system around the world today is in the control of Jewish bankers and Jewish financiers. If they want to, they can bring the US dollar down today. They can do it. Because Washington has printed too much paper. And there are far more US dollars outside of the United States than there are in the United States. It's entirely fraudulent. If I were to do it, they'd put me in jail. And so two things will have to happen. The financial system will have to collapse, and after that, the Jews will control the finances of the world. And number two, there'll have to be this spectacular display of military power. But when that military attack takes place, Israel will have to be able to argue, we were provoked. We're only trying to defend ourselves. So in order to do this, you have to begin the process with Ariel Sharon going into Masjid al-Aqsa with 1,000